Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to test out, apply, wear, and give you my first impressions and review of the new products released by Dior. This is part of their Backstage collection. It seems to be something more along the lines of pro products, what you would see. I think that's why it's called Backstage. So these are what some of the products look like that we're going to be applying in this video. I will go step by step by applying them, starting from foundation all the way to an eye look and blushes and highlights and lip applications, and let you know my thoughts as we go along, and then final thoughts at the end of the video. If you aren't already subscribed to the channel, please make sure that you subscribe. We have giveaways going on. We have lots of makeup videos that are released. And if you haven't checked out the videos for MAC's Allura collection and their new lip products, I will go ahead and link those videos for you to see, and of course a whole bunch of other videos, including from the drugstore, for new products. All right, without further ado, let's get applying Dior's new Backstage collection. All right, so let's start with the Face and Body Foundation. This retails for $40. It comes in a ton of different shades. I chose the two shades 2.5N and 3N. So these are two neutral shades based on the coloration and model match, skin match photos on the Sephora website. I really hope the outside bottle is not representative one-to-one of the depth of the shade. I'm definitely going to go with 2.5 neutral because this already looks too dark from the outside of the bottle. But this says that it has medium coverage for all skin types and a matte finish. So it comes in a squeeze bottle like this. Looks familiar to or similar to MAC's Face and Body Foundation. Okay, so that's 2N. Definitely gonna go, or what did I say, 2.5N. I'm gonna go with that. I'll swatch 3N just so you can see a comparison. Okay, so you can definitely see that it is darker and way too dark for my skin. So in the future, I would probably go with 2N, maybe even 1.5N for the winter. Because of the thin, watery consistency, I'm actually going to just take some of this in the palm of my hands and apply it with my fingers. Oh, immediately you smell perfume in this foundation, which so unnecessary. Synthetic fragrances are almost always irritants to your skin, so I will definitely not be using this foundation in the future or purchasing it again because of that. I do really like the finish this has. It is very reminiscent of MAC's Face and Body Foundation. And it, I would say, has light coverage, not really medium coverage. If you put on a second layer, you may be able to build it up to something close to medium, but I don't think it's initially medium coverage quite yet. All right, next up, I'm gonna do the brows with the Dior Backstage Brow Palette. They have a light palette and a dark palette. They each retail for $35. I picked up the light palette. I wasn't sure which one I should get. Maybe I would be the dark, that would suit me more, but because I bleached and lightened my hair, I thought, well, maybe I will try the darkest shade in the light palette. Actually, let's try, I'll take the middle shade, which is the lighter of the two powders. You have two powders and then a wax to set with. I'll use this for the front of the brow and then the darker shade for the tail of the brow. Taking an angled synthetic brush. Yeah, actually this palette is a good match for my hair color. It's always kind of hard to tell because you don't want to go as dark as your natural hair color most of the time with brows for brunettes, because then it just ends up looking black and then your brows look super harsh. All right, I actually really like this powder. I think $35 is still too much to pay for an eyeshadow palette, but I think it looks very natural. It goes through the brows really nicely. Now I'm gonna run that wax through. There are two Backstage eyeshadow palettes. These retail for $49 each. You have one palette that is the Cool Neutrals palette. All right, and the shades look like this. And it looks like you have a primer up here in the upper left-hand corner. And then you have the Warm Neutrals palette. Again, shades up close with that primer in the corner there also. I tend to like wearing warm tones more, and especially with it being summertime, I tend to lean more warm, but I'll try to mix and match at least a couple of shades from the Cool palette just so we can test the quality. I'm gonna put this primer over. It's not super waxy feeling, but it is wax formula. Actually, now that I'm looking at this palette, this is a neutrals palette, but they're both warm and cool tones in here. Like all these shades on this side here are like taupey. So these are cool toned shades, whereas these are super warm toned shades in the middle. So I'll still mix and match like I said I would, but I wouldn't necessarily call them exclusively warm and cool toned shades for the palettes. So let's start with this shade down here from the Warm palette to go all over the lid. Then in the crease, I'm going to use this shade up here. Matte shade all over the lid, kind of to serve as a base to blend over and to make the canvas of your eye area uniform. All right, then with a tapered blending brush, going in with that darker, actually cool toned brown shade. That one's not super cool toned. Oh, it's just slightly. With a smaller blending brush, I'm going to take this deepest matte shade here, put it in the deep crease and probably a little bit in the outer V. And then all over the lids as a shimmering color from the Cool palette, I'm going to take this shimmering shade and maybe a little bit of this slightly metallic shade on the inner corner. These shadows blend really, really nicely, so it is on the pricier side. I actually don't really think that it's that pricey when it comes to Dior pricing, and the quality is definitely there for the matte shade so far. This metallic shade I think is a little more pure shimmer than I would like. I want more of a base color on this one. It might go better if I had foiled it. So I'm gonna layer on top of that this middle metallic shade. Hopefully this one is a little more pigment and not so predominantly shimmer. No, it has the same kind of formula. It's less pigment than I would like. More shimmer, which means it doesn't adhere as closely to the skin. Still pretty, but I just worry a little more about like fallout and stuff like that. All right, from the Warm palette, a little bit of this shimmering shade in the inner corners, and then maybe a little bit of that original matte shade underneath the lower lash line just to tie everything together. Oh yeah, it seems like all of these metallic shades have the same consistency where it's more shimmer than underlying pigment. So there's definitely metallic fallout underneath the eyes. Hopefully you won't be able to really tell in or on the camera, and I have a hair stuck to my face. I also forgot to tell you, after applying the foundation before doing my brows, I did set with a translucent powder and I applied under eye concealer or concealer to my under eye. Those things are not available in the new Dior collection. So anyway, there's the eye look complete. I applied my own liner and mascara, not from Dior. So let's move on to the rest of the face. So next up is the Dior Contour Palette. This retails for $45. What's interesting about this is that the top two shades here are shimmery, okay, and then the bottom two shades are matte. So I feel like this should be called more of a bronzing palette, especially because this is quite yellow toned and this shade is quite red toned. So there's no like taupe cool toned shade for true contouring, matte shade. So I'm not really sure what to make of this palette. I'm gonna try to contour with these two matte shades down here. And maybe, I think I'm gonna not do anything with these two shades because I already have a blush or highlighting palette, excuse me, that I'm going to use for highlighting. So I don't want to use it for that purpose. I don't want to use a shimmering bronzer because I feel like that might interfere a little bit with showing you what the highlighter looks like. So I want to tread a little lightly. I'm going to start with this lighter shade and contour my nose first. Okay, so I guess this isn't a super crazy pigmented powder. I'm gonna try a little bit of that deeper shade. Oh yeah, that's pretty pigmented, and you see how it's pretty red toned? It looks like a tan instead of a contour. Maybe I'll put just a really light base strip of this reddish shade, and then on top of it I'll blend over it with that lighter, more yellow toned matte shade. Maybe they'll like balance each other out after I do that. Alright, going in with that more yellow toned. Actually, that kind of worked a little bit. Not my favorite way to be contouring, but I can't imagine putting like a reddish brown shade here to be trying to contour with. Now up here on the forehead, I feel like it's a little more acceptable to have something red toned because that's a place where you would naturally get like sunburned, kind of tan. Now I'm just mixing the two shades together. Oh, my brush is really shedding. I think it might be time for this brush to go. This is a MAC 138. I'm a little surprised it's shedding so much. All right, then we have this palette, which is called the, what is this called? Glow Face Palette. Now, Dior describes this as being a blush and highlighting palette. Ooh, it always makes me very nervous when there's a blush that is so metallic. I just don't personally think that's really flattering all over the cheek, but I'll try it with a light hand. So I'll use this shade up here for the highlight and then the pink shade over the cheeks. And I forgot to show you an up close of the contouring palette, so there's an up close shot of that. All right, I'm gonna take this large, fluffy, fan brush. This palette is also $45. Yeah, it's just super metallic. It's not my favorite kind of thing. I mean, I feel like if you're pretty young, youthful, you don't have any texture on the skin, you can get away with these kinds of blushes, but in any other situation, like practically speaking, going out in public, especially under natural light, just having like a strobe light of color on your, such a large plane of your face looks strange to me. I don't think it looks too bad inside under artificial lighting, so it is what it is for the purposes of this video. And then with a smaller fluffy brush, that light white or cream white shade for the tops of the cheeks. Not that we really need any more shimmer. It's already all shimmery, but this does put a pop right at the high point of the cheek. And not taking any more product, but just to blend those two together. And the final touch is with the lip palette. This contains, as you can see, 9 different lip shades. And let's see, to go with this look, I feel like the most appropriate shade is probably this one over here. I think it's called Rosewood. I'm gonna apply it with a flat synthetic lip type of brush. To get more intense pigment, you should use your finger, but I want a more precise application, so a brush is good for that. And did I say this palette is $49? Alright, so there is the completed look of a face using Dior's new Backstage collection products. I wish that the foundation didn't have that fragrance added to it because I think it is a very lovely foundation in terms of formulation otherwise. But like I said, I will not be using that. I could just buy MAC's Face and Body foundation, which I think may also have a little bit of fragrance, but definitely not as much as what you get in the Dior foundation. I also really enjoyed the matte shades in the eyeshadow palette. It's rare to like the matte formulas more than the shimmering formulas because it's much easier to formulate shimmering eyeshadows than it is matte shadows, but I really like the way that the mattes performed in those palettes better than I like the formulation for the shimmering shades. So I think with the rest of this collection, I just don't see the necessity to buy it at the price point. I think the contouring palette is a little strange. I think it's better suited as a bronzing palette, so if you want it for that purpose, it may suit you. The highlighting and blush palette I think is just a highlighting palette. I don't think that many people would get a lot of flattering use out of that palette when used for blush purposes. And I like the brow kit, but again, I think it's just really expensive, even though it is nice. The lip kit, I would just really prefer to buy a single lipstick or 2 of them at the same price point and be able to have a bullet form that's easier to apply, easier to use. And I don't think the formulation for those lipsticks is anything that special. So I think overall, I don't have anything terrible to say about this collection, but I don't know that it really provides anything that other makeup companies weren't providing before and that other companies aren't providing currently at a lower price point. So that's basically the long and short of my opinion. Let me know in the comment section below what you think of these new Dior products, if you like this look, if you think it's worth the money, etc. I'd love to know what you think. Thank you for taking the time to watch as always. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up and I'll see you in the next one.